Hello, my name is Jennifer, and I'm 29 years old. I found myself alone in the world at a very young age because I lost my parents in a tragic car accident. With no relatives to care for me, I ended up living in an orphanage. This chapter of my life lasted for 2 years until I was adopted. My new family was incredibly wealthy, leading me to a life filled with opportunities and comfort. They chose to keep my adoption quiet, preferring to help quietly without seeking public recognition. As I grew up and started my own life, my adoptive parents pursued their dream of expanding their business in France. During this time, I crossed paths with John, who would later become my husband and then my ex. We met in college and felt an instant connection. John was a cheerful and kind person, and I quickly grew fond of him. Our relationship blossomed from casual dates to something more serious, and before we knew it, we were a committed couple. Everything seemed perfect except for one issue. John's family did not approve of me. Despite this, our relationship continued to grow, and after graduating from college and securing stable jobs, we became engaged. John had always mentioned his parents' critical nature towards their children's partners, so I was prepared yet anxious about meeting them. I've always found meeting the parents to be daunting, so the delay in this meeting didn't bother me. When the introduction finally happened, after 3 years of dating and our engagement, I could sense the tension, given that they had not had the chance to get to know me gradually. The day before we were scheduled to meet John's parents, I found myself in a whirlwind of worry, sharing my fears with John. They're going to dislike me. I voiced my concern, which seemed almost certain in my mind. John, however, tried to reassure me. They won't, I promise. Do you think they'll be that shocked about our engagement? His optimism felt misplaced to me. Yes, I do, and considering how judgmental they are, won't this just give them more reason to judge me? I questioned, my anxiety peaking. John's approach was to downplay the situation. Even if they do judge, does it matter? Their opinion won't change how I feel about us, he assured me. But I wasn't just worried for myself. I was worried about how it would affect him. He always seemed to tread so carefully around his parents' expectations. I promise it doesn't matter to me, but if it makes you feel better, we can hold off on telling them about the engagement for a little while, he offered, willing to compromise for my comfort. Considering John's suggestion, I agreed it might be best to keep our engagement under wraps temporarily to ease into their good graces. Thank you, I said, relieved by his support. My nerves were frayed, not only from the thought of meeting his parents, but because John had always made a big deal about their likely disapproval of me. Understanding the root of my apprehension took time. John's family was affluent and indulged in a luxurious lifestyle, expecting their children to associate with people of similar or higher socioeconomic status. My background, however, was modest compared to theirs, and I hadn't shared much about my adoptive family with John, not seeing it as relevant. But as I pieced together why John hesitated to introduce me, it became clear that our differing backgrounds might be a bigger issue to his parents than to us. Feeling that revealing my wealthy background to John's parents was unnecessary, I hoped they would appreciate me for who I am, rather than for my financial status. I harbored a naive hope that they would welcome me without prejudice. For our meeting, we chose an upscale restaurant where I discreetly wore my engagement ring on a necklace to keep it close yet unobtrusive. Upon arrival, just 5 minutes late, John warned me of his parents' strict punctuality, signaling a rocky start. Their initial reaction was less than welcoming, offering me cold scrutiny followed by outright disregard. As they conversed exclusively with John, ignoring my presence, I felt increasingly insignificant and contemplated leaving. Eventually, John intervened, introducing me to his wonderful girlfriend, Jennifer, in an attempt to bridge the gap. The response from his parents was far from warm, with his mother openly expressing her disapproval. The conversation shifted to my college education, where his father's probing about my ability to afford tuition felt like an indirect critique of my background. Defending myself, I mentioned my scholarship, emphasizing the value of both my education and meeting John. Their reaction, suggesting that my interest in John was financially motivated, was the final straw. John, as shocked and upset as I was, decided it was time to leave. Hand in hand, we exited the restaurant, leaving behind a situation that had escalated far beyond what either of us had anticipated. The shock of encountering such blatant rudeness left me numb, unable to process my emotions. The ride back from the disastrous meeting was engulfed in silence, John's anger palpable. Once home, he checked on me, but I couldn't quite pinpoint my feelings amidst the whirlwind of the day. I had made every effort to present myself well, choosing modestly priced items and behaving politely. Yet John's parents, Betty and Tyler, had formed a harsh judgment without giving me a chance to speak. Following the incident, John cut off communication with his parents for some time. They reached out, criticizing us for leaving lunch prematurely, but John ignored their complaints. It was only about a month later that he informed them of our engagement. Their reaction was lukewarm, and they even tried to leverage their financial support for the wedding as a means to control it. John and I, valuing our independence, chose to elope instead. My adoptive parents, who were in France, were supportive of our decision to elope and sent us a lavish painting as a gift, a gesture that raised John's eyebrows, but I dismissed it as a testament to their generosity. Our next encounter with Betty and Tyler was at a party they hosted for their anniversary. Despite my apprehensions, I was initially pleased to be included. However, the cold shoulder I received from the other guests was even more pronounced than before. Clinging to John's side didn't help. Attempts at conversation were either met with dismissive glances or complete disregard. By the evening's end, I was overwhelmed with humiliation and hurt, tears marking the depth of my discomfort. The climax of the evening came when Betty and Tyler were asked to give a speech. Amidst the tension, their approach to this moment would reveal much about our future relations. Exhausted and longing for the comfort of home, I stayed at the party until Betty and Tyler began their speech, which quickly turned into a series of veiled insults aimed at me. Their words, masked as humor, were met with laughter from the guests, heightening my sense of isolation. Unable to bear the humiliation any longer, I discreetly left the party, calling an Uber to escape the overwhelming negativity. The ride home was a blur of tears and sorrow, a painful reflection of the evening's events. When John returned, his frustration was evident. He questioned my departure, labeling it as a source of embarrassment for him, seemingly oblivious to the discomfort and ridicule I had endured. His reaction shocked me. While he acknowledged his parents' inappropriate behavior, he insisted I could have endured the discomfort for the sake of the occasion. This dismissal of my feelings only deepened my hurt. Our argument escalated, with John demanding an apology from me to his parents and himself, a request I couldn't comprehend given the circumstances. Despite our history of mutual support, John's stance was unyielding, suggesting that I had embarrassed his family, ignoring the fact that his parents' actions had publicly humiliated me, his wife. His concluding remark, hinting that perhaps his parents were right about me, was a stark departure from the man I knew, the one who had always defended me. That night, John chose to sleep in the guest bedroom, marking a significant rift in our relationship. The following week was filled with silence, a stark contrast to our usually supportive dynamic. This sudden change in John's behavior left me bewildered and deeply saddened, pondering the severity of the situation and its impact on our marriage. Following the party incident, John's parents bombarded me with messages, labeling me ungrateful and an embarrassment. Despite my attempts to reconcile with John, he remained distant. In a bid to mend fences, I swallowed my pride and apologized to him and his parents, an act that felt deeply humiliating yet necessary due to my love for John and my desire to not let this conflict define our relationship. However, this effort did not herald the improvement I had hoped for. As time went on, John's parents, now retired, began hosting weekly family dinners, insisting on John's attendance. On one such occasion, John brought me along, only for me to be met with cold stares and palpable tension from his family. Left to fend for myself while John mingled, the atmosphere grew even more strained when Betty noticed my presence, confronting me with undisguised hostility for daring to attend what she deemed a family dinner. Despite my assertion of belonging as John's wife, Betty vehemently disagreed, revealing they had conducted a background check and deemed me unworthy of their son and their elite circle, criticizing my appearance and financial status. Her refusal to accept me into the family, citing superficial reasons, left me stunned. I argued that my character and the happiness I brought to John should be what mattered, but Betty's priorities were elsewhere. The confrontation escalated until John intervened, not in my defense, but to offer me money for an Uber ride home. His actions, in alignment with his mother's disdainful attitude, deeply wounded me. Leaving the house in tears, I was bewildered by John's drastic change in behavior. His decision to side with his parents, particularly after such public humiliation, left me questioning the foundation of our relationship, and whether his loyalty had shifted irreversibly in favor of appeasing his family, regardless of the cost to our marriage. Feeling wounded and frustrated, I grappled with the reality that John seemed indifferent to his parents, using my background against me. A stark departure from his usual defense of me. I restrained my urge to confront them loudly, aware that it would only tarnish my image further in their eyes. Reflecting on the encounter, I found no fault in my response. I had defended myself with dignity. Upon John's return, the silence between us resumed, deepening my sense of isolation. Despite expecting him to seek yet another apology from me, I couldn't muster the will to appease him again, especially after the direct insults from Betty. I hoped instead for an apology from him, but it never came. As days turned into weeks without communication, I adapted to the solitude, finding peace in the quiet of our home during the family dinners I was no longer part of. During one of these solitary evenings, my parents reached out through a video call. Their concern was palpably as they inquired about my well-being. I hesitated but charried the struggles with John and his parents, including the demeaning remarks and the isolation I felt. My parents' anger and disbelief were immediate, especially when they learned of the insult directed at my orphan past. Their protective instinct kicked in, with declarations of disdain for such elitist attitudes and a readiness to confront the injustice I faced. I hadn't divulged my adoptive parents' affluent background to John's family, wary that their perception of me would shift for the wrong reasons. My parents, unaware of this dynamic, were shocked and questioned John's role amidst the turmoil. This conversation underscored the complex web of misunderstandings and expectations that had ensnared me, highlighting the profound disconnect not just with John's family but with John himself, whose inaction had become a source of heartache. Seeking acceptance for my true self rather than my financial background had been important to me, but John's alliance with his parents over their disrespectful behavior left me questioning our future. Despite my deep love for him, the rift between us had grown too large, and the silence of the past 3 weeks had surprisingly brought me peace. My parents, upon hearing my troubles, immediately offered their support, suggesting they could connect me with a top-notch lawyer if I decided to pursue a divorce. Their readiness to stand by me in seeking legal separation from John was a stark reminder of their love and support. Moreover, they hinted at a plan for a sort of sweet revenge, which piqued my curiosity. Their proposal quickly shifted from a shared family vacation to a more focused plan of action involving just the 4 of us. The excitement of seeing my parents again, coupled with their promise of a direct approach to my predicament, offered a much-needed uplift to my spirits. As plans unfolded, my father shared his strategy to confront the situation head-on. With their upcoming visit coinciding with one of the family dinners, now at a restaurant, I was tasked with finding the exact location. Leveraging the fact that John's parents were avid email communicators, I easily accessed the details through John's email, which I still had on my phone. Simultaneously, I began the divorce proceedings with the lawyer recommended by my mother, marking the start of a new chapter. Upon their arrival, my parents and I shared a brief reunion before they treated me to a spa day, allowing them some time to prepare for their confrontation with my in-laws. The encounter at the restaurant unfolded dramatically. My parents, recognized by John's family, were initially greeted with surprise and curiosity. My father, known as Mr. Edward, approached the table, causing a stir among John's parents as they realized the connection. The conversation that ensued was likely to challenge the preconceived notions and judgments they had held about me, revealing the true extent of my family's standing and possibly altering their perception in a way they hadn't anticipated. Finding myself unexpectedly standing with John and his family at dinner, my father, Mr. Edward, decided to make a bold entrance. "I thought I might join you for dinner," he announced, causing a ripple of confusion and curiosity among the group. As introductions were exchanged, my father casually inquired about my whereabouts, pretending not to know the tension that had been brewing. The family caught off guard, initially denied knowing about his daughter, leading to a moment of revelation when my father disclosed his identity as my adoptive father and questioned my absence. The air thickened with surprise and discomfort as he clarified that, indeed, I, Jennifer, was the daughter he referred to, and the notion that I was merely an orphan without any significant backing was corrected. Confronted with the truth, John's family attempted to shift the blame, suggesting that if they had known about my influential background, their treatment towards me would have been different. My father retorted, highlighting that my wish was for them to appreciate me for who I was, not for my familial connections. In a dramatic turn, my father delivered the divorce papers to John, signaling the end of an era marred by misunderstanding and mistreatment. Following this, my father's influence led to a swift and impactful retraction of support from Tyler's business investors, a poetic justice for the disdain they had shown me. As the situation unfolded, I received a mix of scornful messages and desperate pleas from John's family, a testament to their changing fortunes. John, to his credit, signed the divorce papers without further conflict, allowing me to close that painful chapter of my life. In the aftermath, my parents and I embarked on a much-needed vacation, a period of joy and healing that allowed me to reflect on the importance of self-respect and standing up for oneself. Though the journey was marked by loss, it also paved the way for personal growth and gratitude towards my parents. Looking forward, I remain excited and hopeful about the new experiences life has in store.